What is up, guys? So a few months ago, I did a video over the Wyvern Blade from the Monster Hunter series, and I analyzed it for realism based on its shape and some of its features. But there's one feature I didn't really cover in that video, and I wanted to come back today to talk about it, and I feel like there's enough to talk about with it to make its own video. It probably won't be some 15 or 20 minute video, it might just be 5 or 6 minutes, but hey, I think it's a point worth covering. So on the Wyvern Blade, it has a section here on the handle, right about in here. And I mentioned it in the video talking about how I think that'd get in the way if you tried to adjust your grip or anything. But what I didn't realize at the time was that when you pulled that blade off your back, that section there actually opened up. And it split right about here. Right about in here. I guess the other side so you guys can see it. It split right about here and just opened up. So that made the handle longer. And I started thinking, I was like, wow, that absolutely makes no sense. I started thinking of reasons why it might be there and some problems with it. I decided, you know, let's do a video over this. Again, I think there's enough to talk about to make its own video. So the first thing I want to talk about is why it might be there. And there are two reasons I can think it might be there. The first would be to add additional leverage to your sword. So you grip your sword like this, a two-hand sword, because this is a long sword in game, which use two hands. So you grip it like this. So it would sit here between that knob or whatever that is, would sit right here anyway. So that's something I think I mentioned in the original video, that it doesn't actually interfere just in usage of the sword, but if you wanted to adjust your grip for something, like maybe you wanted to get just that little bit of extra reach and slide down, or that little bit extra power and slide down with it, you couldn't do that. So it did limit your options. But just holding it doesn't interfere. So if knives were to open up and become longer, so for example, I can't make my sword do that. Let's say I normally grip it like this. Okay, so pretend this part doesn't exist. And then it opened up would be the equivalent of my hand sliding down here. So I would get a lot more leverage on my sword. It would offer me the ability, because I can pull on this as I can push with this hand as I'm pulling with this hand in the direction I want my sword to go, and make really hard strikes, as opposed to having my hands, say, right here. Now, again, I don't really have a long enough handle to show this too much, because I can't make my sword handle extend. But, so let's say we're holding it like this. Just a small gap in my hand, and then extended in my hand, slide down here. I could get a lot more leverage out of it. But, and yes, that would work. Yes, you'd get a little bit more leverage out of your weapon. You'd be able to hit just a little bit harder as you struck, because you could give it that extra torque as you push with this hand, and this hand's a little bit farther away, so you get that lever effect. And you want to hit, I keep wanting to say lever. I keep wanting to say lever effect. I'm American, so I say lever, but lever effect sounds weird. Lever effect sounds appropriate. Anyway, so yeah, you really get that lever effect by having that extended handle. But I'm not really sure it's worth it. One of the things I mentioned in the original video was that the sword is massive. It is extremely long, and I don't really see it being necessary to be that long. And I do remember putting that kind of note aside, that okay, let's pretend it's short enough that it's usable and that you could carry it. So in that sense, if the sword was the size was actually shown in game, then I'm not sure that extending handle would offer a huge bonus. Again, it would extend it out maybe 4 inches. Let's go with 4 inches. I was looking at it, and that seems about right. So it might make the handle longer by about 4 inches. Well, when you have a sword that is already taller than you, like greatsword size, I'm not sure that an extra 4 inches of leverage is going to make a massive difference. I don't see it offering that big of a bonus in a fight. And I understand you're fighting big monsters, so you want to be able to hit them harder. So any increase in power could be useful. So I suppose having a little extra power is not bad, but I don't think the downsides of having this extended handle make it worth it. The first issue is that, again, what I mentioned in the first video, you can't slide your hand. If you need to adjust your grip, you can't do that because that knob's in the way. Secondly, for the ability for it to be able to slide, it can't be full tang. At best, it would be half tang. So by that, I mean your blade, metal from your blade, let me step back a little bit. The metal from your blade in full tang goes all the way through your handle. to the very end, and then usually it's a threaded pommel or peened or handle scales or something. So half tang means at best it would go to about halfway, and then this would be sliding. So that naturally creates a weakness in your sword, because the more pieces you have, the more moving pieces you have, the more complicated they are. Usually the smaller the piece you have, the more prone to breaking, more prone to damage. The other problem is that when it's extended, you still don't have that the ability to slide your hands back and forth. And now the end part is hollow. So closed up, it's technically would be full tang then, assuming the tang then would slide to the end. But you'd still have this split here, so you'd have this weak part. But when you extend it, now you're only half tang, and your bottom half of your handle is hollow. So I mean, it'd be very, very easy if you struck something, and because keep in mind you're hitting as you come into contact with something up here in your blade. About step back a little bit so you can see me. So about this area of your blade is kind of where you want to hit. You're going to be still pushing forward with this hand and pulling back with this hand. So you're just going to, I mean, it'd be very easy to just break that off, and then you've got a compromised weapon. So with having a massive sword already, and having that amount of power that you can generate behind it because it is such a large weapon, I'm not sure that the 4 extra inches of leverage would make that big of a difference. It certainly wouldn't be worth the compromised integrity of the sword. The second reason I think that they might have put this extended handle in there is to add some additional reach with the weapon. Because it would simply, the idea would be a longer handle, you could hit a little bit farther away. I've got 2 problems with this. One is that, again, 4 inches, I mean, you've already got a really long sword. Is extra 4 inches really worth it? Probably not. The second thing is that it actually wouldn't extend your reach, because your leading hand determines your reach. So, because this is the hand's going to be forward. I'm not going to have my hand down here forward, I mean, unless I'm doing a pommel strike, but that's a completely different technique, completely different scenario, and probably not effective against some giant monster. So it's your leading hand that's going to determine your reach, as well as your blade length. So if it extended here, it makes sense, because it extends your blade by 4 inches. Again, I'm not sure that's worth it, not for the compromised integrity, and you already have a really long weapon. But in the handle, that doesn't do any good either, simply because really, so at this point, your leading hand isn't moving. This hand's moving backwards. So your leading hand is still same distance from the tip of your blade. So this distance hasn't changed, therefore your reach hasn't changed. The only difference is your leverage hand back here is now farther from your blade, from the tip of your blade. But again, your off hand, so to speak, your leverage hand isn't what determines the reach of your weapon. It's your blade length and your leading hand. So it wouldn't actually make any difference. Again, if it extended here at the hill, or maybe it extended right here, or in the blade itself, it would increase your range, or your reach. Again, I'm not really sure that it's worth it, compromised integrity and all. And you've already got a really long sword, so I mean, whether you're looking at extra reach or extra leverage, does 4 inches really make that big of a difference when it comes to having this long of a weapon, and whether it be reach or power? I don't think so. In fact, I think if you wanted those extra 4 inches of reach or extra 4 inches of leverage, just put them on the sword. I don't see reason to need to have that extending handle here. It just doesn't make sense. Again, if you find that the extra 4 inches of reach or the extra 4 inches of leverage provided by having a longer handle is worth it, then just make your handle 4 inches longer. Again, you're already carrying such a massive weapon that I don't think you're going to notice it being 4 inches longer that much more than what it is now. I mean, when they're carrying it, it's nearly touching the ground and it's sticking way above their head, and that's carried at an angle on their back. Again, 4 inches, I don't think you're going to notice it, and personally I don't find it being worth it. But if you did find the extra 4 inches of length worth it when it comes to reach, and worth it when it comes to the extra provided leverage by having a longer handle, just put it in there by default. Just make it a standard. Don't put in an extending handle, because again, you compromise the integrity of your blade just by having more moving parts, or sorry, the integrity of your weapon, not necessarily your blade, just the integrity of your sword by having moving parts. And then once your handle extends, it's even weaker simply because now the bottom half of your handle is completely hollow. And a lot of your, I don't know how they work in Monster Hunters, but a lot of your hilt assemblies are simply just pressure. You basically you slide your guard on, you slide your grip on, you slide your palm on, then it's either threaded or peened or whatever, and that holds together. So if you were to hit something and you have your handle extended and you were to hit something and it breaks off because it's hollow, now all this is compromised. I mean, as soon as you were to like swing this could all, your blade just slide out, and now you've got no weapon. So again, absolutely not worth it in my opinion. Not for the very minimal effect of having a couple extra inches of reach or leverage. Not worth the integrity compromise, and not worth the loss of the ability to slide up and down your grip. I want to be able to change my grips on my sword if I want to, and again, it's not worth it. But again, I wanted to cover this topic real quick. I didn't mention it too much in the last video. I just mentioned simply that it would get in the way because I didn't see it. I noticed after I did the video I was playing, and I noticed every time he pulled it out, it went like this, and it kind of slid out, and he grabbed it, and I noticed it there, so I thought that was weird. So I looked into it a little bit more, and I decided this is something I want to do a video over. But anyway, thanks for watching.